Hi, and welcome to March's Cheese Club. I'm Jazz, the Quality and Operations Manager here at Paxton & Whitfield, and this month we've got 4 delicious cheeses to enjoy during the month of March. The theme for this month's Cheese Club is a celebration of female cheesemakers and cheeses that are named after women. In the month of March, we have Mother's Day and International Women's Day to celebrate, and this is our little nod to those celebrations during this month, and I hope you enjoy. This is Blue de Nicoletta. Blue de Nicoletta is a cow's milk blue cheese and it's made in Italy. So this Italian blue is, please excuse my pronunciation, made in the Val d'Oista, and that's located in the very northwest of Italy. So high in the mountains this cheese is made. They actually border kind of Switzerland and France. So the cheesemaker, Nicoletta, is the founder of the dairy, and she founded it in the 1980s. And today she runs the business with her husband and her son. So a really nice kind of family cheese-making story, high in the mountains of Italy. If we think of kind of mountain cheeses, we maybe don't necessarily think of blue cheeses. So it's really exciting to have this Blue de Nicoletta on our counters and in our kind of cheese rooms at the moment. It's actually a double cream blue cheese as well. So it has double cream added to the whole milk when they make the cheese, which when we try it, you'll see gives it a really kind of dense, fudgy and super creamy texture. It's quite different to maybe what we expect from Italian blues, but it is kind of got those similarities as well. So quite different, something like a Gorgonzola Dolce, but it still has that kind of sweet, spicy saltiness that we would see in those cheeses. Let's have a taste. So it's got an all-natural rind, so feel free to try the rind. It is all completely edible, and it'll add like a little bit of pepperiness to the cheese. And the cheese looks quite blue, but actually it visually looks much bluer than it tastes. So we give it a taste. It's quite mild, sweet, rich. It's like I said, it's got that kind of soft fudge texture. So you're not having to chew too much, and super creamy. It's really well balanced and a really interesting blue cheese. Very different to, again, what we would expect from an Italian mountain cheese and an Italian blue cheese. And I hope you enjoy. This is St. Helena. So St. Helena is a cheese made by Julie Cheney and Blake Bodum, and it's made in Bungay in Suffolk. So it's a semi-soft washed rind cheese. We take a look at this texture. It's quite unusual for a British cheese. So it's got a little bit of squidge to it, but it's not a soft cheese like a brie or a camembert, but it's also not a hard cheese like a cheddar or an alpine. So it's kind of somewhere in between. It's also got a washed rind. So this is as it sounds. They wash the rind, and you get this kind of orangey, greyy kind of rind to the cheese. So very different to a white, bloomy rinded cheese. This will add a kind of earthy, nutty, kind of brothy flavour to the cheese, and it's really integral to kind of the overall and over-rounding flavour of St. Helena. So I would definitely recommend giving it a try. When you're tasting the cheese, the rind is all completely edible, and will definitely add like a little something extra to the flavour. St. Helena is the brainchild of Blake, who developed the cheese during the pandemic. So he tried a cheese at a wedding in the Auvergne called St. Nectaire, and he became obsessed with kind of trying to replicate this, but with a little nod to Suffolk. So they used the raw milk of the Montbéliard cow from the farm where the dairy is based. So they're based on Fen Farm in Bungay, and they use this fresh, super high quality milk to create this delicious cheese. The name St. Helena comes from the town in Australia where Blake, as a native Australian, and his family grew up for 25 years. So a little nod to Australia with a French-inspired cheese made in Suffolk. Let's have a little taste. So as I said, it's got this really kind of nice, smooth, bouncy texture. Really smooth and buttery in the mouth. It's quite fresh. So the cheese is matured for a minimum of 4 weeks. As it ages, it will get nuttier and more savoury. Slightly younger, it'll be fresher and brighter. So we try it with the rind. You get in much more of a rounded, kind of deeper flavour to the cheese. Really nutty. I find that texture really moreish. It's really satisfying. So it's definitely what I would call like a session cheese. It's a cheese you can sit down, polish off the whole block without even thinking, because you're just going back for that moreish, squidgy, buttery flavour. And I hope you enjoy. This is Mrs. Kirkham's Lancashire. Mrs. Kirkham's Lancashire is a raw cow's milk cheese, and it's produced by Graham Kirkham in Lancashire. Graham learned to make cheese from his mum, Ruth Kirkham, and she began making cheese in 1978 when her mother retired. Her mum passed down the equipment, the knowledge, and most importantly, the recipe for this cheese. So we've got 3 generations of the Kirkham family making this cheese, culminating in today, when we have Graham running the business. This Lancashire is made using traditional methods, so they use the curd from 2 days milking. This leads to a more complex flavour, really buttery and kind of fluffy texture, and is a really traditional way of making Lancashire. In 1939, there were 202 producers of farmhouse Lancashire cheese, and today Mrs. Kirkham's are one of only 2 remaining producers of raw milk farmhouse Lancashire in the country. So it's quite an endangered cheese. From 202 to just 2 is quite staggering figures. This cheese specifically was made in November 2024, so we've got a 4-month age profile, which is quite typical in a Lancashire. We have a taste. So it's going to have that kind of crumbly, fluffy texture that will be expected from a Lancashire. Really fluffy, really yogurty. It's like an overarching savouriness to it. Quite acidic, which again you'd expect from this kind of style of cheese. Really complex, really interesting flavour. Very different to what we might be expecting from a Lancashire. So very different to that kind of hard white block of Lancashire we may have seen in kind of more industrial produced styles of this cheese. This cheese is a proper farmhouse cheese. And when it's whole, this is a Lancashire here, so about 10 kilos. It's wrapped in muslin cloth and buttered. And again, then left to age for kind of 3 to 4 months. Really delicious, fresh, yogurty, buttery and complex. And I hope you enjoy. This is St. Ella. St. Ella is a delicate croton-style goat's milk cheese made in the beautiful surroundings of the New Forest. So Rosary Goats, who make this cheese, are a family-run business, and they've been making cheese for over 35 years now. The dairy is actually tucked away behind their family home, which is known as the Rosary, because it once had kind of a beautiful rose garden. So a little nod to the idyllic surroundings that they're based in. The cheese itself is actually named after the cheesemaker's mum, Stella. So St. Ella, Stella, a really nice tribute to her with the name of the cheese. If we take a closer look at the cheese, you'll see it's got this kind of wrinkly, delicate kind of ivory rind. And that's a geotrichum rind, which you'll see quite frequently on goat's milk cheeses, especially on these little croton or button style goat's milk cheeses. When the cheese arrives with us, we pop it onto racks, and we turn them every couple of days. This is popped in a temperature and humidity controlled room, and it ensures we get a really delicate and even rind around the whole cheese, so it can be enjoyed with the cheese and not separately. We have a little taste of it. So this style of cheese is really nice, looks really cute on a cheese board. So we take a look, you can see that rind is just really delicate around, and then you've got this bright white paste inside. Let's have a taste. So you can tell by the texture, it's really kind of quite light, quite moussey, but a little bit fudgy at the same time as the knife went through. Really fresh. Really creamy, quite citrusy, got a nice kind of lactic notes to it. And then it's kind of finished off with a little gentle nuttiness to kind of round it all out. A really delightful example of a croton-style cheese that's made in England. I hope you enjoy.